Start me up, baby. Desert dust under
What's up,
my
everyone? What's up? What's up? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Sure, we got people from all over. Pop in the chat and say what's up. Let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from. Make sure your chat settings are set to everyone. Click that little drop down and make sure you pick everyone so that way we can all see. There we go. Let us know where you're tuning in from. What's up, Chris from Colorado? Randolph from Puerto Rico, Latia from Glasgow, Rebecca from Oklahoma, LA, Ohio, Brooklyn, Colorado, New York City, Dublin, Seattle. Oh, yeah. Nice. Well, we'll give it a minute or two just to let some more people filter in, and then we'll get going here. Excited. Got a lot of stuff to go through today, a lot of exciting stuff. How to build an email list. It sounds dry, but I promise you it's more fun than you think. So let me pull up my presentation here and we will get started. From Wales, from Louisiana, from Houston, Columbia, Los Angeles. Yes, this will be recorded and I will send it out via email a little bit later today. Okie doke. Let's do it. I will share my screen and we will get started. Also, special shout out to Songtrust for having us do this. You guys are all Amplified members, which is great. We've loved being a partner for Songtrust, so really cool of them to let us do this. So excited to get started here. Let me pull up my chat window so I can make sure I can see what you guys are saying. Okie doke. Can everybody see this? One's in chat if you can see my screen here. Nice. Okie doke. All right. Well, yeah, here we go. So again, shout out to Songtrust Amplified. Congrats on being an Amplified member. It's amazing program. So many cool features and educational resources, and hopefully we're gonna be one of them for you today. We're gonna be going through the artist guide to building an email list. So this is all gonna be targeted at being artists, musicians, producers. How do you build a mailing list? Why do you build a mailing list? I am going to get in the weeds of building a mailing list. So, what I do recommend is when we send out the replay later, maybe rewatching it, flagging certain spots, taking notes. Usually, I try and keep things pretty high level, but with this, I wanted to kind of get in the weeds and show you some of the things that you can do and be really specific about it. So that way, you guys have the tools to be able to actually implement this with your artist career. If anything feels complicated or overwhelming, that's you're not gonna, none of this is gonna seem supernatural the first go around. That's totally okay. So don't worry about it. We're gonna go through some stuff and then we'll have a Q&A at the end as well too. So if you guys have questions, we could go from there. So all right, let's start. Who the F am I? That's probably the first question that you're asking, right? My name is Michael Gilbride. My music career started as all great music careers do. I was a corporate bond trader on Wall Street for 3 years, traded corporate bonds. Um, I graduated with a degree in finance, worked on Wall Street for 3 years, and my goal was to save up enough money that I could effectively sign myself to a record deal and quit my job and pursue my real passion, which was being an artist. So in 2020, March of 2020, incredible timing to launch a music career. I quit my job on finance and I launched my solo project, which is a band called Telco. There I am there. And this band failed, and I'm going to tell you why. I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I saved up money for years, and I launched my solo project, and I started doing exactly what every single artist does. I was making content, I was filming myself lip syncing my own music, I was paying for playlisting, I was running meta ads, and very, very quickly I realized that none of that money was coming back. And I didn't actually have a plan in place for when that money was ever going to come back. I was just hoping and praying that by doing this enough and spending much enough money and paying for enough ads, that eventually the numbers that I was getting would translate into something real. And that never happened, obviously. So after a while, a couple years of pursuing my music career, I took a step back and I started to look at this objectively and I said, hey, this isn't working. Like this is not sustainable. I can't build a career like this. It felt more like I was gambling than I was actually building an actual music career. So I took some time off from my music career, built helped build two separate businesses, music businesses. I was the general manager for mastering.com, which is an online music production school. And then I founded and launched Mad Records, which is an online collective that teaches business skills to artists, producers, and musicians, which is where you all are right now. So I spent the next couple years building these businesses, and it was by doing that that I really learned what it actually takes to build an audience, uh, build trust with that audience, and actually monetize and make money, and build an actual sustainable business. And now it's my goal with Mad Records to take those concepts and to teach it to artists, producers, engineers, musicians, instead of just giving you the same advice that a lot of people do, where they say, "Oh, you got to go viral on Instagram, or you got to, shake your ass on TikTok," whatever the advice is nowadays that people are giving you. What we try to do is we teach you how to actually operate your music career like a business, because that's what it takes to build something that's sustainable. So, agenda for today, we're going to talk about why email marketing is important. Um, we're going to talk about picking an email provider, building your list via the opt-in, sending your first email, and then we'll talk a little bit more advanced email jujitsu. Um, one quick disclaimer before we get started today. I've been battling this very odd case of pneumonia for the whole month of March. So if you see me coughing a little, or I'm sweating, or I pass out onto my keyboard here, don't be alarmed. It's all to be expected. The show goes on, so we're all good. All right, ones in chat, if you guys are with me and ready to go. All right. Who do we call if I pass out? I don't know. Just let me rest, I guess. All right, here we go. Let's get started. Oh, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. Some ground rules for this presentation. Number one, ask your question. If you have a question, ask it. I've got the chat pulled up here. This stuff can get really dry. So what I like to do is try to make it more engaging, more dynamic. And what that means is any questions that you have, put them in the chat. I can't guarantee that I'll get to every single one, but if you have a question, chances are someone else does. Ask that question. And ground rule number two, accept that you're an entrepreneur. What I mean by this is the fact that you're here today means that you want to be able to promote your music. You want to build an audience. You want to be able to get your music out there and promote it, right? In order for you to do that, then you need to accept the fact that you are an entrepreneur. You're not just an artist. And this idea that artists can't be business people, that's a lie that is told to you by the business people to prevent you from actually being able to advocate for yourself. So you need to accept that you are an entrepreneur. If you want to build an audience, if you want to build a sustainable career, then you are an entrepreneur. If you don't want to be an entrepreneur, I suggest you exit this meeting and you go make music and enjoy making music. But if you are interested in building your audience, monetizing, building a sustainable career, then you have to accept that you are more than just an artist. You are an entrepreneur as well. Okay? Those are the only two rules. Let's get ready to start. Ones in chat, if we're still ready. I know I just did this, but when you're flying solo, you're doing a solo presentation, you need a lot of feedback from the chat to make sure that not boring people to tears. Okay, why email marketing? So most people, when they think of email marketing, they think it's like this dated, archaic form of marketing. It's not really sexy. It's not really interesting. People think, oh my gosh, who even looks at their emails or ever buys anything? I'm going to debunk that today because uh, email marketing is actually the most effective form of marketing in terms of re-engaging your audience. And I'm going to talk about why that's important. So, according to Salesforce, it takes 6 to 8 touch points with someone before they're willing to purchase anything. So it could be anything at all. It could be vinyl tickets, it could be toasters, it could be diapers, it can be anything. Someone needs to have 6 to 8 touch points with a brand or with a company or with a product before they're willing to make a purchase. So think about how many times you drive past a new restaurant before you finally turn to your significant other and say like, "Hey, you know what? We should try that place. I've seen it a couple times," right? It takes time for it to get embedded in your awareness, and that's when you're actually willing to make a purchase. And social media platforms are great at finding new audiences, but they're not great at re-engaging those audiences. So pop a two in the chat if you've noticed that you may have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of followers, and yet your posts are only going to a fraction of that audience, right? It's a problem. How are you supposed to re-engage? How are you supposed to get those 6 to 8 touch points if we're not able to actually reach our own audience? So without access to our audience's data, we are at the mercy of the quote unquote the algorithm to re-engage our fans, right? Every time we post, we're just hoping that it gets in front of our desired audience again, and we are able to get those 6 to 8 touch points. And that's kind of out of our hands. It's not in our control. So where does email fit into this? Well, building an email or SMS list allows you to take that attention that you've created and store it somewhere, sort of like a computer battery, right? So let's say you have something that creates a lot of attention. That's great. That's one touch point. For us to get our 6 to 8 touch points, we need to be able to take that one and we need to store that person somewhere so we can continue to re-engage them over and over and over again, right? I've seen so many artists that have had huge viral moments, and that's great because they get one touch point with millions of people, but it never actually pushes their career forward because they're not able to actually re-engage those people over and over again. So what we want to do is we want to create attention and then we want to store that attention somewhere else so we can continue to re-engage them. That's where the email list comes in. And what this does is it allows you to build a relationship and trust with your audience and eventually get them to take a desired action, right? So once you've got those 6 to 8 touch points with your audience, then you can actually ask them to do something. Stream a song, make a purchase, come out to a show, and that's when it'll actually happen. That's when it actually converts. Email and SMS give you direct access to your audience so you can create those 6 to 8 touch points. Everybody following me so far? One's in chat if we're tracking. Okie doke. So there's an example here that I wanted to talk about. This is a guy named Joshua Bell. In 2007, Joshua Bell was the premier classical violinist in the world. And he ran an experiment where he went into the Washington, D.C. subway system and he put on a t-shirt and a ball cap and he just started playing. And that violin that he was using there was worth $3.5 million. A couple days before he did this experiment, he had sold out a show at the Library of Congress. Um, one of the best classical musicians in the world, went down into the subway, played for 43 minutes, and of the 1,000 people that walked past him, only 7 of them stopped and actually listened to him perform. And of the 1,000 people that walked by, he collected $33 in tips. And one of them was a $20 tip from someone who actually recognized him. So really, he collected about $13 in tips, right? And so why do I bring this up as an example is because there's this idea amongst artists that if you can just show that you're talented or you can just show that your music is good, then something amazing is going to happen, right? Else is going to come in and do the work for you to show you how to make money. And that's for good reason because for a long time, that's what labels did. But those times have changed, right? And now it's up to the artists to actually prove that they can build a viable business before labels become interested. And there's a lot of problems that come with that. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration with that, but it also means that we're not being gatekept anymore and we have control over our own careers. So it all depends on the way that you look at it. But this example was so appropriate because you can have the best music in the world. You could be one of the most talented people on planet Earth. Getting someone's attention and learning what to do with it does not happen simply by demonstrating your talent. You need to find ways to actually build trust and awareness with your audience. And that's where the email list comes in. So let's dive right into it. So number one is just picking an email provider. So um, if you have never done an email prior to this, then you need to pick an email provider. And there's a couple different options. Uh, Number one, the one that we use, the one that I like the most is kit.com. It was formerly called ConvertKit. Um, I've used a lot of different email managers. This one is the smoothest that I've used, but in reality, they all pretty much do the same thing. They all have free trials. They all basically have some sort of free plan usually. If you want to sign up for a Kit free trial, then you can scan that QR code. We are affiliates for them, but realistically, they all do similar things. So you've got MailChimp, you've got Laylo, you've got ActiveCampaign. And you're gonna notice I'm gonna have a couple of these throughout the presentation. Overthinking alerts. Do not spend 3 weeks trying to figure out who your email provider should be. Okay, they all do relatively the same thing. Take a quick look at it and move forward. The most important part when it comes to building your business or building your email list is just movement, continuing to have momentum, trying things out, testing things, seeing what works and what doesn't work. Spending 3 weeks to analyze which email provider is the best one for you, you're going to waste a whole bunch of time. You're going to find that they all do pretty much the same thing. They have different designs, different UX, different things that they emphasize, but they're all do the same thing. So don't waste a ton of time on this. Just pick one and move on. And like I said, Kit is the one that we use. The examples that I'm going to use today, the screenshots that I'm going to talk about, are all going to be through Kit. So again, if you're following along or if you're going to watch this on replay and you want to kind of follow what I'm doing, then I suggest getting an account with them if you don't already have one. Okay. So step one to building a mailing list, once we have our email manager, is getting people onto the mailing list. How do we get people to actually join the mailing list? And this is called the opt-in process, right? And what the opt-in basically means is that someone gives you permission to add you to their mailing list and contact them in the future. So they're basically giving you permission. They're saying, yes, I'd like to be contacted in the future by you. I give you permission to use my information to reach out to me in the future. At that point, they get added to our database and we're free to email them. Question in the chat. Any thoughts on the email platform provided by Bandzoogle for those with Bandzoogle websites? I've never used them. But again, if it's included with your website, it probably does the same thing as everything as all of the other platforms. What I would encourage you to do is start with that. And if you notice limitations or you're looking for features that maybe it doesn't have, then that's an opportunity for you to move somewhere else. But if you don't know, like if you're brand new to it and there's features and you're not even, you don't know what features you're even missing, then I say just stick with the one that you have. But unfortunately, I don't know Bandzoogle personally. So creating an opt-in form is step one to building your email list. So we need to create a place where people can go to sign up for our mailing list. And you'll have the option to customize your opt-in form or choose from existing templates depending on which email provider you're using. So does this look familiar to anybody when they signed up for this webinar? One's in chat if you remember filling out this little registration page. Okay. What you notice at the bottom is the question that says, do you agree to receive a replay of this event and occasional promotional emails from Mad Records? And you could click yes or no, right? That is an opt-in. That's why we do these webinars. So one thing about Mad Records, I'm very transparent about why we do what we do because I feel like you guys, the best way to show you is to be honest and tell you why we do what we do. So we do these webinars as a way of us building our mailing list. So for all of you that registered and clicked yes, please on that opt-in, we now have you on our mailing list and we can communicate with you and we can talk to you and we can build that trust and awareness. And we can eventually get to the point where maybe some of you purchase our products or our services or our mentorship program. And maybe not, right? Some of you will unsubscribe, I'm sure. But the reason that we do this is all for that opt-in to get people onto our mailing list. Okay. So that's our strategy for getting people onto the mailing list. And we'll have to figure out what your strategy is going to be. What value are you going to put behind your opt-in to build your mailing list specifically? So let's take a look here at how you actually build an opt-in. Again, this is using Kit as an example, but everything should be pretty similar from platform to platform. They may just have different names for things. So in Kit, I'm going to go to this landing pages and forms section. It's on the drop down underneath that little toolbar that says send. And this is another opportunity for overthinking. When you're creating a form, when you're creating an opt-in, don't overcomplicate it. Tell people why they should join your mailing list, what they get for joining your mailing list, and be done with it. Okay? You don't have to do some crazy elaborate thing. You don't have to be super salesy. Just tell people why they should join your mailing list. Again, this isn't something that you want to spend 3 weeks on. You want to do it quickly. You want to be honest. You want to be transparent. And then if the opt-in isn't working or you feel like you need to add value, then you can do that down the road. So this is an example of an opt-in form that I use for the ads that we run for Mad Records. So our advertisement is basically an ad that says, I write a weekly business tip via email, via my newsletter. And if you subscribe, I'll send you that weekly business tip. When they click that advertisement, it takes them to my opt-in form here. And if you look at the copy on the left, I'm kind of addressing them, directly and saying, look who clicked on my Instagram ad, introduce myself very quickly, and then I say, drop your email below and I'll shoot you a bunch of free stuff that will help you build your music career like a proper business, right? And then they just pop their email address in and they hit send me the newsletter. That's my opt-in form for our ads. Okay. So for you, should look very similar. You just update it and change it for what you as an artist are going to be providing them. And we can talk about that in the Q&A because I know that'll be a topic of discussion. So everybody tracking so far, one's in chat if you're still with me. Okie doke. Once we have that form created, we just hit the share button up in the top right. And that'll give us a link that we can then put anywhere. I could put that in my Instagram bio. I could put it in my TikTok bio. I can make a QR code and have it at my live performances. I can put that code anywhere and it's going to steer people to that form so they can join my newsletter. Okay. So that's the opt-in process. Couple opt-in tips. The most effective opt-ins are when the opter-inner believes that there's value to opting in. So if you just say something like, sign up for my mailing list for news and updates, some people will opt in, but is that the most value that you can provide for people? And is that the best way to pull them onto your mailing list? So, for example, the way that we build our mailing list, like I said, is through these webinars, right? Because we think these webinars are really valuable. We try to make them as valuable as we possibly can, packed with information that we think is really helpful. And in exchange for that valuable webinar, you guys are willing to share your emails and opt into our mailing list, right? So there's a value exchange that's taking place. It's not like we just send you to our opt-in form and say like, hey, don't you love Mad Records? Like, learn more about us, right? Usually you want to have some sort of a value exchange. And again, we could talk about this in the Q&A because I know that a lot of artists sometimes struggle with thinking like, oh, well, what value can I provide? That's the right question to be asking. And we could talk about that a little bit later on. So the most effective opt-ins are when the opter-inner believes that there's value to opting in. That's the thing that pulls them through that part of the process. If you don't know what value you can offer, that's okay. That's why you test and iterate. Pick something and then iterate. Test it, see if it works. If people are not opting in, then great, you need to change your opt-in, right? If people didn't like my weekly business tip and that wasn't converting, then great, I'd have to change what it is that I offer. And then a pro tip here, if you're a touring artist, you might want to add a zip code to your opt-in so that way you can target specific cities for ticket sales. So, when you're building your opt-in form, if you're a touring artist, I would suggest adding a field that allows them to include their zip code. So that way you're collecting their email and their zip code. So that way you know where your audience is based. And that way, when you go to launch a tour or whatever the case is, you could target those cities specifically, sell tickets to them, promote your shows, things like that. Okay. Who's having fun? I mean, this is just the most riveting stuff. I will say one thing about email marketing. All of the social media stuff has been so gamified and it feels like gambling. And right, and we're refreshing our feeds. We're trying to see how many likes we got and oh man, views and oh, it's this thing's popping off and it's exciting and it's like being in a casino. That it makes email marketing and everything that we're talking about here feel super boring. But the reason why it's also gamified is because it doesn't actually work that well, right? They need to keep you addicted to the platform, right? This is a little bit more dry, it's a little bit more boring, but when this works, it's the most exciting thing in the world, right? Look at all the people that we have on this event. That was all done by email marketing, right? So, what you want to try and do when it comes to approaching your music career like business is detach yourself from the things that are like short-term fun, like gambling, like social media, and focus on the things that actually work. And when you do that and you put that investment in, you build those processes, it's actually really, really fun. It just takes a little bit of legwork. So let's talk about sending your first email. So we've got people opted in to our email list, which means we're free to contact them about news, updates, promotions, bowel movements. Joking. It was a joke I wrote in my Substack, and so I brought it over here too. And much more. We could talk about anything. Free to update them. Obviously, it needs to be related to the thing that they opted in. But once someone opts into your list, that means we're free to contact them about news, updates, promotions, things like that. And this is where you build and deepen your relationship with your audience. So again, this is where you get your 6 to 8 touch points with your audience so that you can build that trust and awareness. And a lot of people, a lot of artists will say to me, okay, well, I got these people on my mailing list, but I don't know what to say now that they're on my mailing list. So, one in chat, if that's something that you feel concerned about, okay, get someone onto my mailing list, but I don't know what I'm going to actually say to them. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is something that I hear a lot. So, my answer to that is you've waited your whole life to have an audience that is interested in what you do. So, just talk to them. Just talk to them, right? As artists, we're we're desperate for someone to look at our art and say, "Hey, I like that. I'm interested in that. I want to hear more about what you're doing." So when you have someone who opts into your list, that's someone who's coming up to you and saying, "I like what you do. Tell me more about it." And so don't overthink it. Just talk to that audience. This is what you've waited your whole life for. This is what you've been working towards is to have that audience. And what I see so many artists do is they'll get someone onto their mailing list and then they basically the way that they approach it is they say, okay, you guys sit there. I'm going to go work on getting new people. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to go focus on getting new people. It should be the exact opposite. These are the people that told you they're interested in what you're doing. Those are the people that you need to take care of. Those are the people that you need to have a relationship with. You can go get new people later, but the people that opted in and are interested in what you're doing, those are the ones that you want to build a relationship with. Do not ignore them. Just talk to them. So how do we actually send an email? So here again, I'm in the send drop down. You go to broadcasts. Again, every platform should look relatively similar to this, and we're going to send an email here. Another overthinking alert. Do not, I'm going to repeat this. Do not overcomplicate your emails. I've seen so many people who make these templates where it's like first they write a little blurb and then they have all of their upcoming shows and then they have a little piece of content at the bottom and then they do a quote of the day and it's like you're gonna do that 3 times and then you're gonna look at this and you're go I hate sending emails, right? So create something that you feel confident that you can continue to put out. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it simple. Again, we're just trying to build a relationship with the audience. You don't have to make something overcomplicated because you're going to do it 3 times and you're going to say, oh, I hate doing this. So again, pick a format that you feel comfortable continuing to deliver on. So you'll be taking a page that looks kind of like this. Um, you have a subject line, you have some copy, you have a sign off, a couple different components sending your first email. It's your subject line. You want to choose a subject that feels engaging and interesting and isn't too wordy since it gets cut off on mobile. So this is one place where you want to try and stand out from the crowd a little bit. Choose a subject line that stands out. But in my opinion, you don't want to be super clickbaity because that turns people off. So pick a subject line that's interesting and engaging. The copy and the body of the email, don't overthink this. Just communicate with your audience in a way that feels natural and authentic, right? No one wants to open up an email from an artist that they like and see something that says, to my dearest audience, like uh super professional, it's super polished, it's super slick. Like just talk how you would talk. Don't don't try and think that you have to have this super polished, super perfect. I mean, unless that's your vibe, unless that's your brand, then great. But if you're just a independent artist and you're talking with your audience, don't feel like you have to put on your marketing cap and all of a sudden change the way that you speak. Just talk to the audience. And then external links, if you want to send your email audience somewhere, then you can add a link to your email to redirect them to somewhere else. And you do that by clicking that little toolbar there, that little paperclip or whatever it is. And you can hyperlink something to your Spotify or Instagram, whatever the case is. So the beautiful thing about this is once we have someone on our mailing list, then I can send them to my Spotify. I could send them to my Instagram. I already have the data, so I know that even if I send them there, I'll be able to re-engage them in the future. So by getting them on my mailing list first and then sending them to my social media, I know that I'll be able to re-engage them in the future. And then last part of sending your first email is the preview and test email. It's good practice to send yourself a test email so you could double check that everything looks right and that you didn't accidentally link your high school prom photos. I've had test emails that have really saved me a lot of stress because you got the wrong link or you've got a typo or whatever the case is. And the way that you do that in Kit is by just clicking that preview link there and sending yourself a test email. Okay, so that's just kind of some best practice for sending your first email and all emails. One's in chat if we're still awake. Okay, cool. From there, we just hit continue, hit publish, and now we've sent our first email. It's the most exciting thing in the world. Um, at that point, we are now communicating with our audience. And the most important part at that point is Consistency. You don't want to let that email list die. You want to continue to engage them. So again, that's why it's important to pick format that you feel like you can be consistent with. Okay. All right, let's talk about welcome emails and sequences. So the beauty of email is that a lot of communication can be automated. I don't always have to just send emails manually. I can automate some of them. And what this does is it allows us to send new opt-ins to various places like Spotify or Instagram, knowing that we'll still be able to re-engage them in the future. So, for example, just as an example of this, uh, let's say I'm performing at a live show, and at the end of my set, I put a QR code on the stage, and I say, "Hey, sign up for my mailing list, and we'll give you some free band stickers at the merch table after the show." And so people opt into my mailing list. They go and they get their free band sticker. I can automate an email to get sent out to them an hour after the show that sends them the entire set list from the show, as well as all of the corresponding Spotify links for each song. And I could say something like, "Hey, thanks so much for coming out tonight. It was great to meet you. Here's the set list from the show. In case you liked a certain song, here's where you can go stream it on Spotify." Right? And so now I'm building that relationship already with people, right? They're getting home, they've got one song stuck in their head, and they go, "Oh man, I wish I knew what that was. I can't remember." They've got an email there from you that's saying hello to them, introducing yourself, and the links to all of your Spotify. And now you can send them to your Spotify knowing that you're going to be able to re-engage them over and over again. Okay, so these are the kind of things that you can do with email that gets really interesting and really helps you build relationships with your fans. So the way that we do that, same spot in Kit, we're going to hit that send drop down and we're going to click this button that says sequences. And that's going to take you to a place like this where you can set however many emails that you want. So I could do a one email sequence. I could do a three email sequence that's spread out over 3 days. I could do a 10 email sequence if I wanted to. And so you can automate all of this as much as you want, right? And so if someone comes to my show and opts into my mailing list, I can have a sequence that emails them once a week for the next 3 weeks or something like that. So if you look on the right there, you'll see email one, email two, email three. I can edit all of those. I can change the time in between each email. And again, what this does is means I don't have to manually send these out all the time. I can have these sequences in place to automatically be engaging and building those 6 to 8 touch points with my audience. Okay. Everybody following on sequences, take a pause here. Just make sure everyone's still with me. Any questions so far? We've been trying to get them as we go along. So what we've done so far is we created an email manager account. We've set up our opt-in form, set up a welcome sequence for new opt-ins, right? Last thing we got to do is activate our sequence. And what I mean by that is I need to be able to tell my email manager who is going to get what sequence. Okay. What this does is allows us to create multiple sequences for different forms, etc. But that's beyond the scope of today's presentation. So basically what I need to do is I need to be able to tell my email manager, when someone does this, I want you to send them this sequence. And that makes everything super customizable. So I'll show you guys how to do that. So in this situation, we want folks who opt into our new form to get our welcome sequence. So to do this in Kit, I'm going to hit the drop down that says automate, and I'm going to click the section that says rules. And I'm going to click this button here that says new rule. And it's going to take you to a screen like this. And what you're going to see on the left is the trigger, and what you're going to see on the right is the action. So basically what you're telling Kit is when someone does this, that's the trigger. I want Kit to do this. That's the action. So for us, we're going to say when someone subscribes to a form, I want you to add them to this sequence, right? So in my case, I'm going to choose that form that I said I use for my advertising, the meta ad form. And I'm going to say, when someone subscribes to that form, I want you to send this new opt-in welcome sequence. And that's going to tell Kit that anytime someone subscribes to that form, add them to that sequence, and they're going to automatically start getting those welcome emails. And you can create rules around anything where it's like anytime someone clicks a link, then you add a tag to them to let them know that you clicked that link. Something like that. Again, this is kind of goes beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, but these rules is where you can kind of really get in the weeds of email marketing and do some cool stuff. But again, for the most basic stuff, what we're just trying to do here is set up a welcome sequence for people who subscribe to our form. And congratulations, that is pretty much going to put you in the top 1% of artists for email marketing. And I'm not joking about that. I am not joking about that. Like these concepts that you learned today here, as basic as they are going to put you in the top tier for artists when it comes to email marketing. S- So many artists just don't do this. Everybody else is pursuing social media, TikTok, they're lip syncing their songs. And trust me, I'm not shaming anybody. I did all of it myself. By understanding these concepts and putting them into practice, you are truly, truly in the top tier, the top percentage of artists when it comes to email marketing. And what that means is you have an advantage. Email marketing, email marketing is common for uh, products and services, and so it's competitive there. But a lot of artists don't do this, which means that you have a competitive advantage simply by the fact that you're going to be probably the only artist that someone is subscribed to, or one of few. So again, I know a lot of this can be a little complicated or it feels like a lot to manage or it feels like, oh man, I gotta fulfill on this email, once a week or whatever the case is. But I promise you, if it's implemented properly, it can change everything for you because you're now starting to build that relationship with your audience instead of constantly just catch and release. I get attention and then that attention goes away. I get attention and then it goes away. You're taking it and you're storing it somewhere and you're continuing to build on this. And with practice, you can build real, deep, and lasting connections with your fans, right? Um, Again, everyone who's here today probably came from an email. And that's because Songtrust has built a relationship with you guys, and they're sending you something that is valuable, and you trust them, and you registered for this event, right? And it's the same exact process when it comes to building a relationship with your fans in music. You just have to change some of the different components to align with your music specifically. Remember, you're building a business, you're not gambling, right? So one thing that I say to people all the time is like, if your strategy for building your artist career is to just blow up on social media or have a viral moment, I always say that that's the equivalent of trying to pay your rent by buying scratch off tickets, right? It's not a strategy. It's just hope, which is great. It's good to have hope, but what you want to do is you want to create a business plan that whether you get lucky or not, it's going to work. If you get lucky, maybe it moves a little quicker. But if you don't get lucky, then it's still going to move forward. It's still going to work. You're still going to be building, right? And that's what you want to do. That's how you want to approach your music career. And so my words of advice here would be anybody who tells you, um, or advises you on how to get really big streaming numbers or how to get a ton of followers or how to get a ton of views, I want you to ask them, okay, that's awesome. How does this actually translate into material success for my music career? And that's where a lot of people clam up, right? They'll tell you how you can get a bunch of streams on your song or how you can run a bunch of ads that get you, 100,000 streams on your song. What you need to know is how does that actually move your career forward as an artist? How does that help you sell tickets? How does that help you sell merch? If I have 50,000 followers, but my posts are only going to 2,000 of them. How does that help me? Right? So again, take a business approach to this. You guys are all entrepreneurs now at this point, and you need to approach it that way. And again, we're not gambling, we're building a real business. And again, that's what we do at Mad Records. We make music business artist friendly, which I think is sweet. Um, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the success stories that we've had, just to kind of give you some examples of the different ways that this approach can be applied. So this is one of our artists, Meryl, who goes by the artist name Joanne Bird. She just sold over 1,000 tickets on her last headlining tour through the Netherlands. She landed a major sync placement in a Netflix season finale. And over that tour, we worked with her to develop an opt-in method for her mailing list. She added 300 new emails to her mailing list. And through that and some social media, she was able to pre-sell over 70 copies of her new vinyl that she's got coming out. So again, she's getting attention, she's storing it somewhere, and then she's using that to sell later on the copies of her vinyl. But we also have some other other ways of it being applied. I've got a student in our program called whose name is David. He's got a band called the Gumbies. He's a former creative director and ad agency owner. He's actually was a creative director for one of the biggest ad agencies in the country. And he uses his branding background to build a mailing list via Substack, where he also releases new music. So he's building this amazing Substack where he talks about music and branding and all of these different things that he's an expert in. And he's been doing that and has gotten a couple hundred people already to opt into his mailing list as well. He's also got Shannon, who is using her theater and psychology degrees to build a music show for children that teaches social emotional learning. So she's going to be doing that through her mailing list as well. And she's launching that show later this year. And we do that all through our mentorship program at Mad Records, where we work directly with our students to build their business plan for their artist career. So through our incubator program, you get to work with me. You get to work with my partner at Mad Records, who's a former Atlantic Records A&R and sync licensing extraordinaire. Our producer out here in Nashville, Reed Sorrell, and our operations manager and artist, Lucy, who does some mentorship as well. So we do free consultations if anyone is interested in that program. Our incubator program, we're actually running a discount on that program until the end of the month. So if you guys are interested in scheduling a call with us to discuss the incubator program, you can scan that QR code, or I will drop a link in the chat in just a sec. So that is it for the presentation side. And what we will do now is open it up to some Q&A. So if you got a question, pop it in the chat. And I will answer as many as we have. I'm going to grab that link here, so I'll give you a second to type up your questions and then we'll get started. Okay. All right. Let me make sure I don't miss any here. How do you target fans by location using lists again? So when someone is opting in, so you'll be able to choose how much information you want to collect on the opt-in form. So you'll be able to say, okay, I want to have their first name, their last name, their email, and their zip code. If you collect that zip code, then that's going to tell you where that person is located. So that way, when I'm selling tickets or I booked a show in that area, I can go to my email provider and I can say, send this email to only people in this zip code. And that's how I can target people in specific locations. So again, in your opt-in process, you want to make sure that you're collecting. If that's important to you, like you want to be a touring artist, you want to be able to sell tickets into these locations, then that's where you will want to collect that information uh, you'll want to collect that information up front in the opt-in. Yeah, you have to collect it on the opt-in form. Yeah, there's no way to, again, we need permission from the person to add them to our mailing list. So there's no way for us to go out and get that information if they're not opting in. Um, Also, there's the link there to schedule a consultation for the incubator program. If anybody is interested, we have some availability. Like I said, we're running a discount until the end of the month. All right, let's take a look at some more questions here. What would you say is a successful open rate in your experience? It depends on how many people you have on your list. So the more people you add to your list, the more your open rate is going to lower a bit. So typically when people first start their lists, they'll get 50, 60% open rates. And then over time that starts to go down 40, maybe 35 to 40% or something like that. Below that is where you want to start to maybe trim your mailing list to get rid of people that aren't engaging anymore to make sure that you're not falling into the spam folder or things like that. But I would say if you're just starting your mailing list, anywhere from 35 to 50% is a good place for you to be. Um, oh yeah, do we post questions in the chat or the Q&A section? Feel free to do either, and I will make sure I check both. Jeff mentioned my monopoly in the background. It's my favorite instrument. Um, Ace asks, have you seen the method where you can use Gmail via a mail merge spreadsheet? I have not. I will have to look at that. You just one thing with email is you want to be careful. There's a lot of compliance rules around it. You want to make sure that anybody that you're mailing is aware and opted in explicitly. So I don't know anything about the Gmail thing, but that would be one thing that I would just look out for. Rebecca asks, do you recommend blending topics from other businesses, life, grief support coaching to share your music email list? Yeah. So amazing question. That's where Mad Records kind of came from, right? I have a business background. I worked on Wall Street. I built these music businesses. The idea that my mailing list would just revolve around my music kind of chops off a lot of my most interesting skills, right? And so I built Mad Records as a combination of all the different things I loved, making music and business, and that's how I built my mailing list. And I still release music to this day. And I do it through our mailing list as well. But it's all through the lens of Mad Records, which is this combination of all these various parts of my personality, which is, my business background and my music background. So yeah, I love when people what kind of call holistic marketing, where it's like you take everything that you have and you throw it into the pot. So if you are a grief support coach, how can you tie that in to your music story and create something that is holistic instead of trying to feel like, oh, that part I need to chop out of my story? Because that's what makes you like a three-dimensional, interesting person. So, great question. David, who I mentioned earlier, is a great example of that. He had this amazing advertising and branding background. And when he first came to me, he was saying, well, I just want to promote my music. But he had so much insight and amazing skills in the branding background that he's now merged that where he's created a newsletter where he dives into the brands behind some of the greatest bands of all time. And that's how he's been able to build his mailing list. Uh, Odelia, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, is asking, do you feel like SMS text messages are also useful as emails or better? Yeah, email or text. Text is really good. You just want to be careful because text can feel a little bit more invasive. I used to do text marketing when I was at mastering.com, and some of the responses that we would get were pretty unsavory. Some people get pretty annoyed about being texted. It's a little bit different on the artist side. I think if you're opting into an artist's SMS list as opposed to a business like us, It's a little bit different. So SMS, I think, is great. It functions under the same properties. You know that when you're sending that SMS, it's actually going to go to them and it's going to reach them. So yeah, it's a great way of doing it as well. Nigel asks, is social media still a good way to target specific people and to get them in a pre-email opt-in funnel? And would you suggest different email lists for my artist profile one and a similar for a separate one for a related project? So, um, I just had this conversation with an artist yesterday where it's very, very challenging to pull people off of social media platforms. Like even if you get a lot of followers, it's very, very difficult to get them think about think about the way that you consume content, right? You doom scroll on your phone, you're sitting on the toilet or you're sitting in bed and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. The amount of work that it takes to leave that doom scroll and go to someone's bio and fill in your email, it just doesn't happen. And also, the social media platforms aren't incentivized to help you do that. They want you to stay on the platform. They don't want you to go to the link in bio and leave the platform. They want you to stay. So it's really, really challenging to get people off platform. It's not to say that it can't be done. I've seen people have done it amazingly well. You just you really, really have to crush it at social media and really have a strategy in place in order to be able to A, build up enough attention on the social media platforms, and then B, have so much attention that it actually can spill over into your email list through a link in your bio or something like that. So it is challenging. It's why we don't put a ton of work into our social media because it just doesn't really help us achieve our goals, right? We make a majority of our income through email marketing, and social media doesn't really help us build that too much. Um, but again, it depends on your specific strengths. I've seen people who can do it really, really well. So, um, how good is Kit at preventing your email newsletter from going to spam? Um, I think all of them, I can't say with certainty, all of them do pretty much the same job. It's more so a function of what you're sending out and who you're sending it to. So, what you don't want to do is load up your mailing list with people that aren't interested in what you're doing, because then they're going to start to flag it as spam and that's going to get you in the spam folder, right? So, for example, like you guys opted into this webinar. If tomorrow I send you an email that is like a picture of me and my 1 year old baby, and I'm talking about like how we're going to music class. It may be cute, but you're gonna be like, okay, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I'm not interested in this, right? You're gonna mark that as spam. That's gonna be the things that's gonna get you in the spam or the promo folder, right? So you really want to make sure that the people who are opting into your list, you're sending them things that are valuable. So that way you're keeping your open rates high, you're keeping your click rates high. That's the best way to keep yourself out of the spam folder. It's not necessarily the platform that's going to make that difference for you. I use MailChimp for my mailing list marketing, but with the free version and is limited. Do you have any other ways to go about it? It depends on what your budget is. Again, I would say like Kit has been great for us, but if you're limiting yourself to the free version, then you won't have access to all of the features. But I do think that even a free version is better than nothing at all. You could still get a lot done with the free version. You just can't do some of the more advanced techniques. So it all depends on your budget. Rebecca says, how do you reach an audience if you don't use social media and you don't have live gigs currently? I mean, if you're not reaching them in a digital environment and you're not reaching them in an in-person environment, it's gonna be challenging. Um, but if you're just saying social media and live gigs, then if you remove those, then you have to ask the question, two questions that I have my artists ask. Number one, who is my audience? Like, what kind of person am I trying to market to? What's the age demographic? What are their interests? What do they like to do? Where do they congregate? And then the second question is where are those people right now? So, for example, if I'm a uh, if I'm a spiritual based, meditation based artist, right? And my audience is going to be people who do yoga and people who meditate and people who like crystals, right? I'm going to say, okay, cool. Where are those people right now? They're going to be at yoga studios and meditation studios, and they're going to be at the little boutique shops and things like that. How can I get myself in front of that audience then at that point? Well, maybe I can set up a little meditation session at the yoga studio or something like that. Or maybe I can bring my music to one of the boutique stores and see if they'll play it there. If you're not playing live shows and you're not doing any social media, then it is challenging. They're pretty limited to get in front of people. But basically, you just need to find where your people are and then how can I intermediate myself and put myself in front of them in a way that's valuable for them and pulls them onto my mailing list. So probably a little bit of an issue that we would have to kind of talk about a little bit deeper. It's just a little tough to do, but Joanne asks, so where do we post the opt-in link if not on social media? Um, well, it's a great question. I mean, you can do it on social media, but for example, um, I'll give you an example of an artist that we work with. Her name's Abigail. Her opt-in strategy is when she plays live shows, she brings her personal journal with her. And in the middle of her set, she says to the audience, "Hey, I'm going to pass around my journal, my personal journal. And I want you to if you want to join my mailing list, I want you to sign your name, leave a little note, and leave your email address in my journal." And she passes it around into the crowd. And all of a sudden, these people are having this really, really kind of intimate moment with the artist where they're holding on to, her personal journal and they're writing their name in it. And it becomes this much more than just an opt-in. It's this experience. It's something that bonds them with the artist, right? And so doesn't always have to be the digital opt-in form. You can literally have a piece of paper and then upload those emails later. So that's one way of doing it. You can also do it through a QR code at a live show if you're doing it. You can have it at your merch table where you say, "Hey, we'll give you free stickers in exchange for your email." There's a bunch of different places that you can put it. What's more important is trying to figure out what your fans are interested in that they would give their email address for. Um, Other questions. I used MailChimp for a few years, but I noticed a big drop in my open rate recently. I can't figure out why. Any suggestions? I would reach out to the platform and see. Um, Also, if it's been a long time since you last emailed, that could be a problem. If there's any like major changes in what you've been talking about. But if all of that has been consistent, you haven't made any major changes, I would reach out to the platform and see if there's something more systemic going on. Sometimes there are issues behind the scenes that they'll be able to help you with. Um, okay. All right, let me go to the Q&A section here. How is an opt-in form different from a contact me form that I already have on the website? Contact me is they're emailing you to get in touch with you. Right. So if I have a contact me page on Mad Records, that's going to be you inquiring about our products or services or something like that. Um, you want an opt-in where someone's saying, "Yes, I agree to allow you to continue to market to me and send promotions to me." So it's a little bit different. By the way, I'm just going to post the link to that consultation. Again, if anybody wants to discuss the incubator program, work on this stuff with us, feel free to book a call there. Okay, another question here from Mattia. Pulling people off social media, is that possible with organic posts or ads? Also, does that strategy make a website redundant? Is there any advantage to trafficking people to the website from socials? Great question. Um, So like I showed you in my example, we run some advertisements through social media that pushed our mailing list, and those ads are working really well. So ads are possible. I would pump the brakes. If you're thinking about running ads, then you need to know how are you going to make your money back on those ads before you start running them. If you don't have any visibility or any idea of how you're actually going to make money off those ads, and then it's not the time for ads. But we have run them, and that's been helpful for us. You can't, like I said, you can do things to get people onto your mailing list from social media organically. It's just challenging because again, you're fighting the momentum of them scrolling and you're fighting the incentive of the platform to not want to send them off platform. Um, again, it's not impossible. It's just challenging. What are the best ways for artists to get new email subscribers? It's kind of a loaded question. It all depends on the artist. Um, the first thing that we have artists do that work with us in our programs is they build what's called their artist compass, where they kind of identify what their strengths are, their goals, their values, and their constraints. And based on those things, we develop a specific marketing plan based around who they are as a person and their strengths and their values. So there is no kind of like one size fits all. It all depends on the individual artist. Um, Okie doke. I think that is all of the questions. Uh, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. You've been a great audience. Appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, I will send the replay out via email. Um, as soon as it's rendered and ready to go, I'll shoot an email out. Um, again, if any of this is overwhelming or confusing or anything, don't worry about it. It takes some time, takes some practice. Um, if you are, like I said, interested in working with us more deeply on something like this, feel free to schedule a consultation with me and we could talk about our incubator program. But look out for the replay email and I will see you on the mailing list. Um, hopefully y'all will stick around and we'll continue to have a nice long relationship. I send out a bunch of stuff that hopefully will be helpful from the business perspective for all of you guys. Thanks again to Song Trust as well for having us, and congrats on everyone for joining the Amplified program. It's been really great so far being a partner, so we appreciate it. And I will see you all on the next one. Yeah, and I didn't pass out. So win-win all around. Um, okay, appreciate you all. Thanks so much. See you next time.